Okay, so let's pick up with part 2 of Deuterostomes. Sorry for the kind of the abrupt ending to the part 1 as we were talking about asexual reproduction. Time ran out. So let's go back, just briefly catch up on that. So most of the Deuterostomes have the ability, or the Econodermata have the ability to do asexual reproduction. And this means they can regenerate. So if you cut them in half, they have the ability to actually regenerate their body. So imagine taking a knife and going and chopping this guy in half right here. Well, if you have enough of the ring canal and the radial canals, the animal can regenerate. So this is a starfish that's regenerating 3 of its legs. Let me get a better color here. All right, so this one here is regenerating, this one here is regenerating, and that one there is regenerating. So got a little goofiness going on. It should only have 5, but sometimes weird things happen during regeneration and development. So the word of caution to anybody who may at some point become involved in the fishing industry or the mollusk industry especially. A lot of starfish really like clams and oysters and different mollusks. They're actually predators. They're carnivores. They will eat these things. And what happened, this was learned the hard way, many years ago, fishermen got mad at these starfish and they went and they chopped them all up. So that's supposed to be the starfish. And they caught a bunch in their nets and said, well, we'll show them, chop them up. Well, what they did is they basically doubled the population if you chop them in half. Do it this way, now you may have created 4 new starfish. It just depends on how much of the ring canal is present in the chunk if it has the ability to regenerate. But it's a great thing if you get one of your legs chopped off by a predator, you just regenerate. If you get cut in half, now there's 2 of you. All right, so again, kind of a crazy regeneration ability, but it's there. Any of you who are fans of Marvel Comics and the Avengers, look at the Hulk. How does the Hulk regenerate after he's been injured? So there's lots of different versions of the Hulk out there. One of the older versions, the Hulk was created because the dad was a geneticist and tinkering with genetics and spliced starfish reproductive or regeneration abilities into whatever it was that turned the guy into the Hulk. So look for that in the comic books or if you watch the movies and the cartoons. So, all right, enough of that tangent. Let's go over to the other side of reproduction, sexual. You have males and then you have females. So that equals eggs and sperm. These are typically free-floating in the water column, synchronized timing for the release. They form the zygote, and the zygote is free-swimming in the water column, and then eventually they settle down on the bottom to continue their development and become the adult form of the starfish, or whichever Econodermata we're talking about. Okay, now that we've gotten through the general features and characteristics of Econodermata, let's jump into the 5 existing classes. There's over 20 extinct classes of Econodermatas out there, so a lot of diversity, but we only have 5 left. So the first class to mention will be class Asteroidia. These are generically known as the sea stars, or we call them the starfish. All right, so Asteroidia has our typical pentaradial body plan, 5 arms coming off the central disc there. They use the water vascular system for movements. Big things about Asteroidia, they are carnivores. One of their favorite food choices are the mollusks, so those bivalves especially, because they can't move around real fast. So think about all the mollusks we talked about in the protostome lectures. That's a food source for a lot of the Asteroidia. We tend to find them in what are called intertidal zones, all the way down to 10,000 meters in depth within the ocean. So the cool thing about these guys, we tend to see arms in multiples of 5, and they use those arms to actually feed on the mollusk. So what they'll do is they'll wrap their arms around the mollusk and they'll stick hundreds and hundreds of tube feet onto the shell of the mollusk. Let me draw it out here. So here's our mollusk. Remember, bivalvia. And then what we're going to see is the starfish straddles it, puts an arm here, puts an arm here, maybe puts another arm here. Obviously, you guys know my drawings are not very good. And it starts to exert pressure. And it uses those different muscles. It uses the hydrostatic pressure of the tube feet pulling. And what it's trying to do is just get that crack in the seam of the mollusk to open up. And then the starfish will actually push its stomach out of its body and into the shell of the mollusk, the clam, the oyster, and secrete digestive enzymes. Once it secretes enough enzymes, it basically starts digesting the mollusk, the soft, squishy parts. Then the mollusk is dead, the shell pops open. But crazy to think, these guys are actual predators in the marine environment. All right, that's our first class. Second class are the Asteroidia. These are known as the Brittlestars. Now, superficially, they might resemble mollusks, or I'm sorry, resemble the Asteroidia a little bit, but what we'll see is they have really long, skinny arms. So generally, 5 pentaradial body plan there, 5 arms. There's a little video for you guys if you hit that hyperlink. So typically 5 arms coming off that central disc. Instead of being active predators, they fall more into what we call the detritivore category. And they use their tube feet to collect plankton. So they tend to be very secretive. They'll hide underneath the rocks and the reef structure and then stick this little arm out with all these tube feet, grabbing plankton floating through the water, suck it back in, bring it back in, and then consume it. So different ecological role. Asteroidia, more active predators, carnivores. Ophiroidea, detritivores, consuming detritus bits and stuff within the marine ecosystem. So, all right, number 3, Econoidea. These are known as the sea urchins and the sand dollars. So those are the 2 main members of Econoidea. Again, a pentaradial body plan. If you look at let me get a better color. You look at the sand dollar down here. This is what we call the shell or the test of the sand dollar. Notice it's got these 5 arms embedded within the bigger shell. This is a dead one. The skin has actually decomposed and you're left with this white bone-like structure. That's the endoskeleton. The urchin to the right, same thing, but that urchin is living. So it's got its skin and then it has all these spines coming off of it. Most of the Econoidea will have spines attached to their endoskeleton. The spines protrude through the skin. They're kind of anchored to the endoskeleton, and then they protrude out through the skin. And they can use those spines for a lot of defense, warding off predators, trying to keep things away from them. The tube feet sit underneath the body of the Econoidea. Ecologically, these guys can be herbivores. They can be detritivores. Ooh. All right, so we don't see a lot of carnivores within the Econoidea. So very important ecologically to have these on a reef, because when we talk about herbivores, a lot of these guys are algae grazers, meaning they eat the algae. So what they'll do is they'll decrease the competition between algae and coral on the reef. You get too much algae overgrowth, coral dies. It gets choked out by the algae. Econoidea, especially the herbivore ones, very, very important to maintain a healthy, biodiverse ecosystem, marine ecosystem here. So, all right, number 4, Holothroidia. This is a fun one. These guys are known as the sea cucumbers. This here. This is a former student. This was taken during the marine trip to Belize. She is holding a sea cucumber known as the donkey dung. It looks like a big donkey turd. So generally, Holothroidia, they have this leathery body. They have that pentaradial plan, but it's all internal inside that leathery body. The tube feet are going to be on the bottom, or sometimes some of them have the tube feet in the front, and they'll use that to sift through the sand and get food that way. These guys are the detritivores. They're going to sift through sand and basically do the same thing an earthworm does, consuming all the nutrients within the sand, pooping out the sand after it's been cleaned of nutrients. Weird thing about them, if I can spell this right, they have the ability to eviscerate their digestive and reproductive system. This means when they're stressed, if they're attacked, they can shoot their digestive system out of their anus, or they push the reproductive system out, and it distracts the predator. The predator's like, ooh, look at all this warm, slimy stuff coming out of it. I'm going to eat that. And then the sea slug tries to just slowly crawl away and get away from the predator while the predator is distracted. They can then regenerate those systems that they've just shot out of their body. Talk about a weird, crazy ability. So, all right. I'll let you guys look up the story about the pearlfish and the sea cucumber and see how that little mystery plays out. So, again, always weird, neat things in the marine environment. So, okay, last one here. This is the last class to mention, Crinoidea. These are known as the sea lilies and the feather stars. Generally, these are deep water organisms, but they can be found in shallows. So if you look in a book or most resources, they talk about, oh, they're always very, very deep. I've seen them in the mangroves in 3 feet of water. So they are filter feeders. They use their arms and those tube feet to collect plankton out of the water. They have a mucus that they trap plankton in and then draw it back in into their body. If anybody has limestone gravel in their driveway, dig through it and look for those things called Indian beads. Those are the stem here of Crinoidea. Illinois used to be a sea, an ocean, millions of years ago. So check it out. Take a look for some of these fossils.